Hi, I'm Pat Croce, and you're watching ACS Healed. Today, we're revisiting one of our favorite of many gatherings over the past year. We hope you enjoy this special gathering filled with real life stories of inspiration, motivation, and survivorship from cancer survivors themselves and experts from the American Cancer Society. We look forward to seeing you on May 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for our next ACS Healed live gathering. Until then, stay connected with ACS Healed at 6abc.com and acshealed.com. Good morning. Hi, I'm Pat Croce, and welcome to the American Cancer Society's HEALED Community Gathering. HEALED stands for Health and Energy Through Active Living Every Day. And our community gathering is every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And we thank you for joining us. Today we have great guests. But before we join our guests, I would like to just take a moment of stillness. I'm just going to ring this little Tibetan bell, and I want you all just to place your attention on the bell. Now that seems simple enough, but what that did, that little experience, was to bring you into the present moment and allow all of your attention to be placed on that sound. And what that did was eliminate the past. We leave the past to the past. Now, as you enter our gathering today, this is all about the present moment, right here, right now with us. And so last week I left up here at Meditation Hill and I went back to Villanova. I had a funeral of a very, very dear friend, Andy Stern, a really dear friend, and one of our leadership partners. 6ABC is our presenting partner, and we thank 6ABC. And we thank our leadership partners. We have about 28 of them. Andy Stern, Andy and Gwen were one of them, and Andy had a tragic death a little over a week ago. So I'm home for the funeral, and I'm walking the streets of Villanova, and there's a dog in the middle of the street, a friendly dog. It has a collar on, but it's going to get hit by a car because it's a windy, hilly street with a sharp turn, and that's exactly where this dog is. And I'm afraid it's going to get hit. And I'm trying to grab it, and it's playing with me to see what the collar said. And then a car is coming up pretty fast, and I wave it down. The window's down, and outside the arm of the window is a fellow's hand resting on the windowsill. And all I saw was the bracelet, the healed bracelet with the green bead. I look up and I smile. His name is Frank. I haven't seen him in a year. I didn't know he had testicular cancer. And now he's doing great. That's Thursday. Saturday, I'm in Ocean City. I'm walking the boardwalk in Ocean City early, 6:15, 6:30. I'm walking down in my own trance. I usually do a good 6-mile walk. And all of a sudden, a guy yells, "Pat Croce." And I look up and he goes like this. And he's got the bracelet on. He has the bracelet on. His name was Wayne, and he had a scar about 6 inches along his throat. He had throat cancer. Had just undergone surgery and chemo and was scheduled for radiation. And he had a positive outlook on life. And it just demonstrated to me the power of this movement. That's 2 people in the course of 3 days, both wearing their healed bracelet with that green bead signifying the unity that we're all in this together, not only in this whole sphere of cancer prevention, caregivers, lovers, but in this universe of pure being where love and peace and happiness arise, starting with us. So please tell 2 people to join us here at acshealed.com. They can either make a donation or not. I don't care. What I want them to do is show the love for those who are deceased. Get a bracelet in honor of someone they love. That's all it's about. And let's spread the word. Now, speaking of spreading the word, I got someone who spreads the word about the NBA better than anyone on this planet. Now, this guest, I had met him in 1996, I think, when I was running the team, running the 76ers. There was a group of reporters who would always follow, several of the beat writers. This one beat writer, he was powerful in his presence because he would circle the rest of them like a shark. And he would wait till they left and boom, he'd attack. And you would see in the Philadelphia Inquirer the next day, before he was a columnist, he was a beat writer, you would find out, how's he get that information? Where'd he get that from? He was always aware. His presence was always aware, and his presence now is aware to all of us who are fans of ESPN and the NBA. I would want you to welcome Stephen A. Smith, who's a commentator on the ESPN's First Take, frequent appearances on SportsCenter as an NBA analysis. You'll see him on ESPN NBA Countdown, anything NBA. It's Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith Radio. This man, I can call him a friend because when I asked him to appear on this gathering, he said yes. We had to go through his daughter and my grandson because they go to school together. But Stephen A., I love you. Thank you for joining us.
Love you too, my brother. How you been, man? How's everything?
I'm great. I feel great. And I wanted to talk to you offline, but there's too much to say. But after we met, after I left in 2001, I went on my own course. And then I got a call from you, just like you got a call from me here, and you were creating a new TV show. When was that?
That was 2005 when I had, quite frankly, with Stephen A. I hosted a show from August 2005 to January of 2007. Hosted my own hour-long talk show called Quite Frankly on ESPN2. It was pretty much to launch the ESPN2 channel. It's almost similar to what I'm doing now with me having Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus, except this time I'm the executive producer of my own production company, Mr. SAS Productions, co-produces the show in concert with ESPN. So I'm sort of spreading my wings like somebody else I know that used to run the 76ers that taught me how to do that, just spread my wings and really, really go for it. That's what I'm doing right now.
So is that show available right now, Stephen A. Smith's World?
Yes, Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's 4 days a week I do it. I don't do it on Wednesdays because on Wednesdays I usually have my NBA show, which is SportsCenter with Stephen A. Smith. So on Wednesdays I'm doing my NBA show every weekday morning. I'm doing First Take, and I've been blessed and fortunate enough. We've been number one in the mornings for the last 9 years and counting. And of course, I'm doing Stephen A's World on ESPN Plus. So that's pretty much what I'm doing.
So you must like the Stephen A. character.
Well, they do. They say that, it moves the needle, it generates revenue and ratings. And at the end of the day, we can sit up there and, just try to finagle our way around it. But that's really what it comes down to in the media business, particularly in this day and age. It's who generates the revenue, it's who generates the ad sales and things of that nature. And if you're the person that moves that needle, you're going to reap some of the success from it. And if you're not, you're going to be out and somebody else is going to be in your place. It's pretty simple.
So speaking of out, we all see you as the epitome of success because you're all over. Everyone knows your name. You're quite a brand unto itself. But why don't you share with us some of the pitfalls and potholes that you had to overcome along the way?
Well, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I got left back in the 4th grade because I had a first grade reading level. Once I overcame that and graduated from college with honors, obviously, I went to an HBCU, an historically Black college and university, and I majored in mass communications because they didn't have a journalism program. And so when you don't have that at your disposal, you got to pound that pavement. It's not about your resume and your grades, your transcript. What it's about is, networking. It's about internships. It's about garnering practical experience that shows a potential employer I'm really interested and passionate about doing this. Because really, when you graduate from college, you can go from high school, you can go from college. People need to understand that in the end, when it comes to a potential employer, they already know what they want to know is that you can read, you can write, you can comprehend. Outside of that, it's about you. It's about how much you show them you want this. When I first ran into you many years ago, the first thing that oozed out of you was your passion. And people who were around you that didn't have a passion for life, a passion to succeed, you weren't one of those people that would dismiss them. You'd push them. You'd be in there. You try to encourage them to move forward. Whereas other people might not do that. But in the end, you made it clear, you know what? If you're indifferent, if you're apathetic about things that are going on in your life, how in God's name could you expect anybody to be passionate on your behalf? And so knowing that and learning that from people like yourself, obviously my late mother, God rest her soul, and my family members, and just growing up in the streets of New York and not wanting that to define my life, to be all that I was blessed and fortunate to meet people along the way that just reinforced that kind of thinking. Yourself, our buddy Steve Mountain, he used to represent me. I love Steve, and Steve was an integral part of my growth and my career. Professors and things of that nature. Then you get into the industry itself, and in 2008, 2009, I had a contract dispute with ESPN. They decided to let me go. I thought I was worth more than they offered. They thought otherwise. And they let me go. And for a full year, I found myself unemployed. For 2 full years, I was off television from 2009 to 2011. I was not on television. And you've known me for years. I believe I'm one of the best. And how in God's name could that be the case? And then you grow up and you learn. You could sit up there and you could bring up stuff like prejudice and racism. You could bring up stuff like, well, they're out to get me. But that's not looking at yourself. I had to look inside myself, and my mother helped me do that, because I remember when I got let go, she let me languish in the house for about 2 days. I went back to her house, even though I had my own house. I went back to mama's house, licking my wounds per se. And I went back, and after about 2 days, she brought me some lunch one day. And when she brought me lunch, Pat, she had a mirror next to it. And I was like, this ain't, what's the mirror for? You brought me food. What's the mirror for? She says, I'm just wondering when you're going to look at yourself and
Oh,
stop blaming everybody else. She said, what did you have to do with what happened to you? We know that this boss you didn't like and you didn't get along, or that guy said something, or this was not a great situation. But what could you have done better? What did you do to contribute to your own demise? Because you'll never get anywhere unless you address that. And so I always remember that. And so from the time that I was gone, I thought about what I didn't know about the industry. I thought about this notion of popularity that I had. I said, you know what, I'm popular. People screaming my name, chanting my name. And that was my definition of success. But what I didn't think about was what the boss's definition of success was. Well, how much revenue are you generating? What about advertisers? How receptive are they to embracing the product that we put you at the forefront of? I mean, what are you doing to contribute to our bottom line? They came from a very business-oriented perspective to justify the offer that they made to me. All I had was my emotion and people yelling my name in the streets. And so what I learned from that experience was I didn't master my own business. I didn't know what defined true popularity. I didn't know what my true worth was. I didn't have any idea because I didn't do my homework. I got caught up on the emotional side of things, gravitating towards what people were saying about me instead of truly knowing the business the way that I should have. And from that point forward, I shredded the emotional element from it all. I focused on the pragmatism of it all. I focused on knowing and mastering my business to the best of my ability, mastering Stephen A. Smith, who I am, what I want to be, what my worth could potentially be, what it was at that particular moment in time, what would justify a fair offer, an unfair offer, et cetera, et cetera. And I depersonalized it all and focused on what the business was focused on. And by doing so, by doing that, I relieved myself of an incredible amount of stress because I was able to not personalize things. And if you're not personalizing something, then you don't harbor any animosity towards anyone because of it. And as a result, you're able to move forward. And it gave me a level of tranquility and a peace of mind that I've been able to hold on to this very day.
Stephen, it's amazing that the paradox of becoming a bigger name was accomplished by allowing your ego to subside. I mean, you
Yes.
really, everyone thinks Stephen A. Smith, giant ego, but what you did is you suppressed the ego, this personal wants, and allowed what the business needed to succeed, which is pretty amazing. Now, before I let you go off that path to success, and I love the mirror. Did you ever write a book?
I'm in the process of writing a book. I've just reached a deal with Simon and Schuster to write
Oh,
a memoir, and I'm in the process of doing that as we speak.
well, I didn't know this. That was not a loaded question, but that story of your mother with the mirror, day 2 in your self-pity, is just, that gave me a satori, which is like a no brain Zen movement. Like, oh, Oprah would call it an aha moment. That was just too good. I may have to repeat that story at times, Stephen. That's too good. But I know, I didn't know this man, but you played ball for Winston Salem State, and you used to talk about. We would sit in the bleachers, and I just loved picking your brain. I was new with the Sixers, but you talked about this influence that Clarence Gaines had on you.
He was, first of all, he was a legend. God rest his soul. He passed away in 2005. He was a living legend. He, along with the late, great John McClendon, helped integrate the sport of basketball because they had that secret game at Duke University where black players were playing against white players and, in the middle of the night at Duke University or whatever. He used to just talk to me about life all the time. And somebody said to him, why are you always spending some time with him and talking to him? Because I had knee surgery. I cracked my kneecap in half. I was out. I was injured, and I certainly wasn't going to pan out to be the player that they aspired me to be because I just wasn't healthy. And he said, God damn it, he wants to be somebody. That's what he said. And he was very, very big on that. And he would always remind me that what I achieve means nothing if I haven't influenced others to succeed themselves, that you owe it to us, HBCUs, to me personally, Clarence Big House Gaines, to your family, to your mom, to your friends, to your community. You owe it to give back something. Don't just ascend and forget, because the people that you might be leaving them behind as you ascended, that's where you were. And it speaks to your character because, as you know, reputation is what people think of you, but character is what you are when no one's watching. One of the things that I've done, just thinking about him, and my relationship with my father was never very close. So Clarence Big House Gaines was like a father to me, but it also taught me just to value the other people along the way. I've always been one of those guys, like, you call it weird, call it difficult, or whatever. I've always been attracted to elders. I love when I'm in Philadelphia. I love sitting down and talking to Sonny Hill. I loved sitting down and talking to Larry Brown. I love sitting down and talking to Pat Croce. In terms of wisdom, I've always attached wisdom to life experiences. People who are older, who have been there, who have endured whatever it is that they've endured, and learning from them. I enjoy that more than partying, to be quite honest with you. And so for me, I've always been that guy. And learning from a guy like Coach Gaines just reinforced the importance of learning from others down the line as well as I continue to grow in this world.
Man, you're going to have a good book, my brother. It's going to be a good book. And you mentioned someone twice, your mother's influence. Yeah. Share a little bit with us about your mom.
She's the greatest human being I've ever known. What she had to endure raising us, because, to put it mildly, my father was very negligent in his duties as a dad, in terms of taking care of the family. My mother worked 2 jobs, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, 20 years, 1 week's vacation. And to see what she endured just to make sure that we were kept afloat and that, we were okay. I just can't say enough about her. She emphasized and pressed the importance of education, being law-abiding citizens. None of me, I'm the youngest of 6. None of us have been incarcerated. None of us have gotten in trouble with the law, none of that kind of stuff because of my mom. We were surrounded and, living in the streets of New York, and drug dealers were on the corner. Violence was always around the corner and stuff like that. We were somehow able to escape all of that because of her, because the standard was what she set. And the notion of disappointing her was what vexed us most. We didn't want to do that, and we wanted to make her proud. And so, that's who she was. She came down with cancer in about 2009, lost that battle in 2017.
What kind of cancer, Stephen?
It started off as colon cancer, and then it just spread. And, she was the rock of the family. And so, for me, it's always very, very hard. But I remember one of the things that's been very, very interesting I remember when Maurice Bernard, he's an incredible actor that plays Sonny Corinthos on the soap opera General Hospital, a soap opera I have a recurring role on actually. He on podcast because he suffers from bipolar disorder. And so mental health is a huge, huge, huge thing with him. And he's interviewed a lot of people. And I remember he was talking to me about my mom. And I think that I said something that I saw circulating and it really resonated with a lot of people. Something else that my mother said to me when we were sad and we were down and thinking about the end coming for her because we could see that she was just fading. And she said, and she looked me in my face when we were one on one. One of the last things she said to me, she said, "Why are you so sad?" She said, "Would you rather it be the other way?" She said, "Because if you love me, you wouldn't want that for me." She said, "This is the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be me saying goodbye to you. It's supposed to be you saying goodbye to me." And I always remembered that because what she said was, I raised you to be strong. I raised you so you could move on with your life without me, knowing that I'll never leave you. I expect you to know that, but this is how it's supposed to be. It shouldn't be the other way around. And I tell that to especially the men who've lost their parents to such a debilitating disease. One of the things that you have to mention to a lot of them is that you have to remind them your parents would tell you this is the way it's supposed to be. We wish that we didn't have to deal with it at all. But if you had to choose, it's supposed to be them, not them burying their child. She expects me to be strong. Your mom or your dad expected you to be strong. They built you for this. And as much as it hurts to see them gone, you move on knowing this is what they wanted for you. And you live with their spirit inside of you. And you just march on and march forward and do what you can to make them proud.
So, how are you making Coach Gaines and your mother, their influence, their power, their presence? How are you taking that into this next act?
First of all, trying to enjoy life a little bit more, trying to smile a little bit more, recognizing and appreciating the blessings, not just taking them for granted. We say that a lot of time as human beings. We don't practice. We don't practice it. We get up every day. We think about the grind. We think about, we got to go to work today, you know, as opposed to we get to go to work today. We think about how we've got to, you know, see these people instead of we get to see these people. We've got to have these experiences instead of we get to have these experiences. We don't look at life in a positive way that we might just give lip service to because the grind is the grind and we get caught up in that. And that's essentially letting other people's worlds engulf yours. And you learn the hard way that you can't do that. That every day is precious. That when you have loved ones, people that you love and care for, and you look into their eyes and you know they feel the same way about you, and the power of laughter and the power of smiles and the power of enjoying yourself and stuff like that, you can't beat it. When I was younger, yeah, I'd go to the clubs, I'd go to parties and stuff like that. I've never had a better time in my life than just hanging out with friends and loved ones, surrounded by people that I know that love me and I love them back. And we all just shooting the breeze and having a good time. It's always those days that seem the shortest because you're having such a good time that time just flies by because it's never enough. And when you feel that way, then you realize how truly, truly blessed you are because everybody doesn't have it like that. A lot of people do. A lot of people have it more than they realize, but everybody doesn't have it like that. Some people in this world don't have a lot of family members, a lot of friends in their inner circle that they can trust and share a bond and a love with. But I'm blessed and fortunate to have that. And so what I try to do is I try to just enjoy life just a little bit more every day. I've been incredibly successful. God has blessed me tremendously well. I know that I'm living better than I've ever lived. I've got two beautiful daughters. I've got 15 nieces and nephews. I got four older sisters. My friends from childhood are still around. They're my friends. My friends from college are still around. They're still my friends. I'm blessed and fortunate enough to meet guys like yourself, the Billy Kings of the world, the Aaron McKees of the world, the George Lynch, the Eric Snows, the Allen Iversons of the world, the Larry Browns of the world. All of these people I mentioned because I still keep in touch with, you know. And then you see guys like, you know, Shaq and so many other guys that I know. And then I think about Kobe. I was with Kobe Bryant 3 weeks before he passed away. And we were talking about how we were planning on doing some stuff for ESPN Plus. He was a guy that was just an incredible, incredible player and all of this other stuff. And he was so locked in and focused, rarely smiled or laughed, you know, the people that were outside of his inner circle, whatever. I recall I had never, ever seen him that happy, ever. He was just glowing. And he was 40, 41 years of age. And he was like, I did it. I'm a 5-time champion. I'm a future Hall of Famer. He said, I've got enough money to make sure my family's taken care of, whatever. My life at this moment in time belongs to me. And I remember the happiness that was on his face and what brought him to that point. And I think it's something that we should all aspire to have, some level of control over our happiness, but it's up to us. It's a willingness and a commitment to ensuring that that's what engulfs our life as opposed to the negative. And that's what I get from my mom. That's what I get from Coach Gaines. That's what I get even from people like you, Pat, and others. It's just the way it is.
I want to leave you on that note because no one can top it. And I love the way you said gratitude. And we end with a gratitude prayer, Stephen A. So please hang on because our next guest you'll love, Dr. Patel. And I know we have some Q&A if we can get to them. But man, thank you. Thank you for that. Gospel according to Stephen A. is just something. It's beautifully, beautifully. Thanks, my brother.
My brother.
So our next guest, I'm going to skip the energy segment. Our guests are too good. Dr. Alpa Patel. She's a research scientist, and she's in charge of, she's the executive VP of population science at the American Cancer Society at headquarters in Atlanta. If you're from Philadelphia, it's Atlanta and the MBA, Atlanta. But she has 40 research professionals answering under her division, where the HEALED study is being unfolded, is underway because of the money that was raised by all of you. Just to keep those $25 people coming on one at a time, wearing the bracelet, enjoying, as Stephen A. said, enjoying life in the present moment, enjoying the now because it's too fleeting, goes by too fast. Alpa, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing to support our work. I will say I'm a little intimidated to have to follow Stephen A. Smith because I've been a fan for many, many years. So, but always inspiring.
Alpa, would you, my bio of you, my introduction isn't good enough because I don't know enough. Can you share with us, one, what population sciences is and how you got to the top of the realm in your world?
I started working at the American Cancer Society almost 24 years ago, straight out of my master's program in public health here at Emory University in Atlanta, and fell in love with population science. So, and specifically population science at the American Cancer Society. We bring communities like this together in the form of large research studies. So they're called the cancer prevention studies. Hundreds of thousands of people say, we want to be part of those answers and making those discoveries. And so they donate blood samples, they donate, if they've been diagnosed with cancer, tumor tissue, a lot of lifestyle and medical information. All of this is amassed for us to then look at what are the causes of cancer, how can we actually intervene to improve cancer prevention, how can we then, if someone is diagnosed with cancer, help people live a long and healthy life after that diagnosis. And we do that through studying these hundreds of thousands of people that dedicate their time and information to our studies over decades. So I started after my master's, I left and went out to the other coast and went to University of Southern California's Keck School of Medicine for my doctorate in preventive medicine. I've always been of the mindset I'd much rather keep a disease from happening than have to deal with it after it's happened, but both are important. So we really look at how can we prevent those cancers that are preventable and then make sure the rest are treatable. And have been back at ACS ever since. Started running a small portion of one of these studies, and a lot of hard work and just, I think, commitment to what our mission is.
What exactly is the mission?
So the mission of our population studies is to understand the causes of cancer and how to better prevent it and improve survival after a cancer diagnosis. So, of course, the HEALED study that the community heard from Erica about a few weeks ago, that is one of the ways in which we're working to understand how to help cancer survivors improve quality of life after a diagnosis. So I focus a lot on physical activity, sedentary behavior or sitting time, and understanding how those factors, body weight, et cetera, influence the risk of developing cancer. And then Erica on my team works on understanding how it affects cancer survivorship.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the sitting time you just mentioned?
This is where I think a life experience kind of gets in the way. When you're a student and you're hustling around campus between classes and all this stuff, you realize that you don't sit much other than when you're in class. And then all of a sudden I saw, this 10 or so pound weight gain creep on when I had a desk job. And I was like, I'm still going to the gym 5 or 6 days a week, but then started thinking about the rest of my life. And I realized that I was what I called an active couch potato. We're old enough to remember when you had to actually turn the dial on the TV and you got up during commercials. But now there's so much with technology that allows us to be sedentary in our free time. And so I set out to ask and answer a pretty simple question. Even if you do enough exercise, if you sit more, is that bad for your health? And is that bad for your risk of cancer, heart disease, and other health outcomes? And the short answer is yes, it is. So since then, I love to tell people when they say, what should I think of? Sit less, move more. That should be the easy motto in life: sit less, move more.
And is there a more quantity of more that you suggest?
So with movement, yes. Doing something is better than doing nothing. That is where you're going to see the greatest benefit. Any movement's better than no movement. But then in terms of our, the research that we do feeds into physical activity guidelines. So when we think about at the population level, what should we be striving for? It's about 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity each week. So if you think about it, that's about 30 minutes on 5 or more days of the week. But moderate intensity doesn't mean much to a lot of people. So I like to just tell people for reference, that means walking a 20-minute mile, 3 miles an hour. You're not going out and doing marathon training. You're moving enough to get your heart rate elevated, to breathe a little heavier, and it does an immense amount of good for so many things, not just cancer, but heart disease, diabetes, mental health, including depression and anxiety. There's so many health benefits for moving.
And all of this data that population sciences is doing at ACS, how difficult is it, first of all, to get into people's minds? Secondly, to move from the mind to the body and get them to change their behavior habits?
It's tremendously difficult. If we could get individuals to do what we know is beneficial, then we'd be in a much different place than we are today. And it's why we need studies like the HEALED study. But there's so many influences, right? It's not just about individual choice. It's about where you live and your ability, financially, or because of your neighborhood characteristics, whether you can go out and safely walk or be active outdoors. There are so many other influences. So we really are able to take these nationwide studies of hundreds of thousands of people and look at those environmental influences, the individual influences, and how those things work together to actually affect behavior and then disease risk. And then we do studies to understand how to help people be more successful in changing behavior.
Is there an optimum environment, an optimum behavior pattern that you would like to see?
I'd love to see people, like I said, strive for as much movement throughout the day. I'm standing right now at my desk, and so I try to do at least every other meeting. I go from sitting to standing. I think that it starts with small changes, and I think it starts with, most importantly, finding what you like so that you'll keep up with it.
There you go.
There's no magic recipe of you have to do these things. It's really about finding the things that you like so that you stick with them.
What do people ask you expecting that it would carry the magic bullet for them?
So generally I'm asked, if you have to pick three things for cancer prevention, what would those three things be? And, for me, there are several things that you could say, but I would say get every cancer screening that you should be getting, because the earlier we find a cancer, the more treatable it is. I would say maintain a healthy body weight through being physically active and eating a healthy diet. And most importantly, of course, don't smoke. That's probably the most common question I get. And then as people know what I do, they oftentimes are like, well, what do you do to reduce your sitting time? That's always we got to make sure that I'm not being a hypocrite about it. So quite often that's the question. And so I always do like to share that I use the sit stand desk. I have my watch, my fitness tracking watch on to remind me to stand up. And, it's the little things.
And so you talked about screening, do every screening possible. What do you suggest people to do to take advantage of the screening that's available? We had Natasha on a couple of weeks ago talking about the health equity of providing environments where screening isn't a priority.
There's a lot of work that we're actually doing at ACS, not in population science, but in some of our other programmatic areas, to actually work with different communities through different primary care systems like federally qualified health centers, to actually reach individuals more broadly to make screening more accessible. But there's actually a great, and I can stick it in the chat, there's a great new one-pager on cancer.org that we should actually share on the HEALED community as well, that tells you exactly what you need to know about what screenings are available, which ones you should be getting and starting when, and how to think about scheduling your screenings so that you are doing what you need to do.
See, I think that's beautiful. I think that's perfect for us to promote, proclaim, project, just scream out loud. Also, in the same realm of screenings, prevention, we talk about the fitness and activity, health and energy through active living every day. So active living doesn't necessarily mean going to a gym. I've seen studies by the American Cancer Society where you talk about the equality of METs, metabolic equivalents, in vacuum cleaning and gardening. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when you think about movement, right, being active, think about it from sleep, which your body needs. And we know that there are a lot of health benefits to getting enough sleep, to then different gradients of how much energy you expend doing different things throughout the day. And so there's things that are what we would consider lower intensity, very light gardening. But if you're doing some heavy yard work, you're getting to that MET level. So that means you don't have to go to the gym because you're getting that moderate to vigorous activity through your everyday life. Vacuuming is another one of those things. Housework. There are things that have, and there are great calculators online that, again, we can share that help you understand what the intensity level of different things you may be doing are so that you can gauge whether you're getting enough activity. But the goal is really, if you're not sitting and you're doing anything, you are expending more energy than you would be if you were sitting.
I was going to have an energy segment, but I'm going to bring it up right now. And it's called the Nature Pyramid. Dr. Nick DeNubli, who was on a couple of weeks ago, an orthopedic surgeon and big proponent of fitness and on the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, and advisor, he shared with me an article called the 25-3 Nature Pyramid. 20 minutes outside 3 times a week. Get outside. Just being outside in the environment, the sights, the smells, the sounds, decreases stress and increases peace and harmony. So it's 20 minutes 3 times a week. Now, we're saying do more than that, but make some of it outside.
Absolutely. Or, there's also benefits of doing some of it with a friend. We've done other studies, again, because we collect so much information around so many facets of life, that show that the more social connections you have, and this goes back, directly to something that Stephen A said, that, the richness of that time spent with friends and family, do that with a nice walk outdoors. And you're getting those social connections along with that physical activity all bundled into one. And then there's so many more benefits to it that are additive that we're still only understanding how they benefit health.
And Alpa, I want to finish that pyramid. 20 minutes outside, 3 times a week, 5 hours a month in the forest, in the woods, in the nature, in the park. So it's 20 minutes, 3 times a week, 5 hours a month in the park. And, the Japanese have a term, Shinryu-yoku. It's a philosophy meaning forest bathing. They believe that you go out in the forest and it helps with your immune system. It helps with healing. It helps with harmony and peace. And then the 3, 25 and 3, the nature's pyramid, the 3 is 3 days a year, go off the grid. No cell phones, no iPads, no computers, just chill out 3 days a year and just enjoy the peace and harmony of this planet. So I think that this also adds to that healthy living every day.
Well, I love that you just shared that, because I am going 3 days off the grid next week to Oregon on a hiking trip. So I'm going to be able to check a lot of those boxes.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Now, I know we have about 15 minutes left, which is wonderful. And we'll bring Stephen A. back on, because I wouldn't let you ask him a question prior to this gathering, because I love the extemporaneous Q&A coming from the same presence. And I love to hear your question to Stephen A.
Well, my question is not it's not typical of a researcher question, but I did say that since I'm in Atlanta and Pat, of course, you and many members of the HEALED community are in Philadelphia. Stephen A., would you make a prediction for Friday night's game?
Well, to me, I think that Atlanta is incredibly impressive. They can shoot from all over the place. They've got multiple shooters, but they have no answer for Joel Embiid. It's hard to predict which game is which, but I think Philly will win one of the two back in Atlanta. I think this series is going to go 7 games, and I think Philly will win it in 7 games. Atlanta's best shot is to win it in 6, to maintain home court advantage throughout the rest of this series and win near 3 games in Atlanta. Could they win a game 5 in Philly? Sure. But I don't think there's no way they will win a game 7 in Philly. And I think the way Joel Embiid and them figured them out defensively yesterday, I think that's going to be a pretty tall task for them to pull off. So I'm still holding with my prediction that Philly will win in 7, but I could see Atlanta winning Friday and Philly winning Sunday, or vice versa.
Well, Alpa's hoping Atlanta wins on Friday.
Okay. I am. It's the one game I'll be at, so I'm hoping that we get to see a hometown win.
Yeah, I think Atlanta can win Friday, but if they win Friday, they'll lose Sunday.
Stephen A., before we go to the questions from our audience, what is the prediction, your prediction? And I've never asked this of you ever, but I would love to hear your prediction of the NBA Finals. Who will be the champ?
Brooklyn Nets.
Really?
The greatest offensive show. These guys understand that James Harden was a 3-time scoring champion, averaging 30 before he came to Brooklyn and decided to distribute the basketball. Kyrie Irving is an absolute showstopper. He's box office, just oohs and ahs all over the place because he's electrifying with that basketball. And Kevin Durant might be the greatest offensive force we've seen in the game since Michael Jordan. He's unstoppable. He's 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan. He can pull up from 30. He got a mid-range game that's unrivaled. He's got ball handling skills. He's unguardable. And the combination of those 3, combined with the selflessness that they've been displaying on the court, moving the basketball, getting shooters like Joe Harris and Landry Shamet involved, Blake Griffin coming over to the team after stealing money from the Detroit Pistons, and now because he wants to play now. He didn't want to play in Detroit, but he wants to play now. So suddenly he can dunk again. They just have too much weaponry. I'm not going to summarily dismiss a Denver Nuggets team, but they don't have Jamal Murray. The Clippers, to me, with Kawhi and Paul George are impressive, but I think Utah will probably beat them. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. They play defense. They shoot threes. Both teams can make it interesting, but in the end, it comes down to Brooklyn to me. And I've got to see it to believe that somebody can knock off a team with that much offensive firepower. They don't even have to play defense. They really don't. They can put 140 points on the board a night anytime they want.
So you're saying this without saying it, that they would beat the Sixers.
Yes. and sadly, it's because of Ben Simmons more so than anything else. I love Ben Simmons. I think that Ben Simmons is a jump shot away from being the second coming of LeBron James. He's that special. The problem is not only does he not have a perimeter shot, he doesn't even attempt it. And so as a result, you get to lay off of him and pretty much play 5-on-4 against the Sixers while monitoring him on a baseline because he can get to the basket and do damage that way. But he's no threat from the perimeter. And when you're going up against a lethal perimeter shooting team like the Brooklyn Nets, you have to be able to score. Because you can't have your primary ball handler, which is Ben Simmons for the Sixers, not being a threat from the perimeter and beat a team like Brooklyn. I don't care what Doc Rivers says. I don't care what any of them say. The Sixers would fall to Brooklyn.
You never cared what anyone said anytime.
That's true. That's true.
Diana, I know we have questions from our community. Bring them on.
Hi, Pat. We do have a couple of questions. The first one is for Stephen A. You said it means nothing if you don't give back. How do you give back?
First things first, I have a whole bunch of relatives that I take care of. Number two, I'm charitable with my time. I go back to my alma mater every year. I give at least $50,000 a year to my alma mater. I've raised in excess of $11.5 million for HBCUs and generated over 2,000 scholarships for individuals that want to go to a historically Black college or university. And I'm going to continue to do that because I'm the brand ambassador for HBCU Week. So that's just one of the few. It doesn't get into numerous donations that I've made throughout the years, along with the fact that any chance I get, I try to give back by making sure I talk to folks and educate them about some of the challenges that they'll face, because you got a lot of folks on the come up that need to know, the do's and don'ts. And also I have aspirations of starting my own literacy foundation because, again, I got left back in the fourth grade with a first grade reading level. That is a cause that is near and dear to my heart. It's just that I have other things that I'm trying to accomplish. So once I start that foundation, I'll be able to generate the kind of resources necessary to help as many people as I possibly can.
And just a little bit of a follow-up to that. How do you think our healed community members can give back?
By educating folks about what they need to do to prevent cancer, but also your time, your counsel, your love, your guidance, a willingness to be open and honest about these things. I'm having this discussion with you. I'll be the first to tell you, it's not easy for me to talk about my mother. I'm sad every day thinking about life without her, but I know that's what she wanted me to do. And I know that every time that I do speak about it, it shines a light on the issue. It helps us to educate ourselves about some of the do's and don'ts and some of the things that we need to avoid that can facilitate us winning this battle rather. And it makes her smile down on me, because I'm doing what she would want me to do. So
I'm going to put you on the spot, Stephen A. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Do you get screened?
Do I get screened?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful. That is it. That's the answer. We have to walk the talk. I didn't know if you did or not, but that's what we can do. When someone of your stature and presence gets screened, everyone should be screened, because as Alpa said, if we catch it sooner, there's more we can do for it.
There is an issue in the Black community when it comes to going to the doctor, which we all know. That is not something I've ever been plagued by. I sneeze, I call my doctor. Okay. I go for checkups every 6 months. I mean, it doesn't matter. I do what my doctor tells me to do. I've had colonoscopies. I've had endoscopies. I get my physical examination. I've got my cardiologist check me. I mean, every single thing that there is to do. I just got my PS. I just literally heard this morning. That's why I was almost late getting here, because I went and got, I got my checkup. They took some blood work, urine samples, and all of these things. Looked at my PSAs. They said your PSAs are fine. All of this other stuff. I don't play around. I'm like this. I'm not feeling well. I mean, let me go let me go to the doctor. Let me just check myself, because I'm traveling. I'm on a plane. There's germs flowing and all of this other stuff. Let's go to the doctor. I feel fine, but am I okay? And my doctor would be the first to vouch for me on that regard. I religiously go and get myself checked out.
I love that, Alpa. That should be a commercial. I don't play around.
I was just thinking the very same thing, because think trusted messengers, hearing that from me is not going to necessarily resonate in every community. Hearing that from Stephen A. is.
The thing about that's crazy, like, for example, you've got a whole bunch of folks and people who reach out to stars and, let's get it. I cannot tell you how many times I have volunteered to do PSAs and people haven't taken me up on it. I'm like, I'll go out there. I remember, and finally, when the whole coronavirus pandemic came about, you had the governor of New York and the mayor of New York City looking for me to, encourage people to wear a mask and stuff like that. I did that when I took the vaccine. I took the vaccine with the cameras rolling, because I knew that there was an African-American that runs the Jersey Health. His name is Dennis Pullen, and he runs the South Jersey healthcare system there, Virtual Health to be specific. And he brought me down and he got on me because originally I was hesitant. And he was like, this is affecting Black people disproportionately, and took me to the ICU and showed me that it was a whole bunch of people in there. And so I went out there. And then when it comes to cancer, of course, because of my mom, the Jimmy V Foundation called me, asked me to give a speech and to speak on those things. And they honored me at that particular event or what have you. But I always, listen, when you're in the public eye, and you reach millions of people, particularly for the right causes, I don't think it's just a good thing to do. I think it's an obligation for us to step out in the forefront and say, excuse me, wake up, people, and everybody stop being so nice about it. Sometimes Pat Croce knows that about me. Sometimes it doesn't pay to be nice. Sometimes people don't hear you when you're nice. Sometimes you got to be in their face. Look, do it. This is what you need to do. Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to make sure you're healthy 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now? Do what the hell you got to do. Sometimes you got to approach it like that.
Diana, does that answer your question about service?
Thank you.
One more question.
One more question. We have one for Alpa. Alpa, you talked about how important physical activity is. What advice do you have for cancer patients currently under treatment when sometimes their energy levels are low because of their treatments, and some days they aren't able to really do a lot of physical activity?
So I actually, in the Q&A, if everyone is able to see that, put a great link to a prescription pad, really, for physical activity for individuals who are actively going through treatment. But I think it starts with, again, doing something is better than doing nothing. So if you're able to, if the most you can do is one lap around your house that day, do that. That's always what I tell people. Like, there's an optimal amount, but something is better than nothing, and then build up towards an optimal amount. But that prescription pad, that the link that I put in the Q&A is really helpful, because it helps you understand that if you're struggling with one particular side effect from your treatment, for instance, fatigue, what is that prescription of how much exercise? There's been a tremendous amount of research that we and others have done to be able to actually say, if we could prescribe exercise instead of a pill, here's how much you should do. And I will leave you with this. The multi-system benefits of moving are greater than any single pill that is on the market right now.
Say that again.
The multi-system benefits of being physically active, moving, is greater than any single pill on the market right now. Not saying don't take pills and just exercise, but there's so much additive value in being active.
Last word from Alpa. Last word from Stephen A.
I'm honored to have been here. I love you, guy. I love you, Pat. It's great seeing you. It's great seeing you just being who you are, because you've given so much to so many people throughout the years. It was just my pleasure to be here with you today, to be able to join you all, and to give something back. And I hope that, you know, my words were somewhat inspirational to anybody who was watching, anybody who will watch, anybody who's heard what I've had to say. But despite what I've had to say, what Alpa pointed out was far more important, because some of the things that she said, I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, thank God I've been exercising. Thank God I've been running on the treadmill. I've been walking on the treadmill. I've been riding the Peloton bike. I've been lifting. I've been breaking the sweat. I've been active. And it was just a few months ago that I started doing it like 5 days a week minimum, that I've been on it. Prior to that, you're just working and working and working, and you get caught up in that. And before you know it, life passes you by because you're thinking you're active. You're active in terms of what you do for a living, but you weren't active in terms of what you needed to do to take care of yourself. And it could be one of the biggest regrets that you ever have, because as the old saying goes, there's no wealth without health.
Hmm.
You got to take care of yourself first. And only then does everything else elevate in terms of the level of appreciation that you'll have for it. You'll appreciate what you've accomplished. You'll appreciate your loved ones. You'll appreciate your inner circles. You'll appreciate your peace and your tranquility when you're healthy. But when you're not healthy, you could be alone. You could be surrounded by loved ones. You could have wealth. You could have riches. You could be successful. If you're not healthy, you're all alone feeling bad, because you know you should be feeling better. And some way along the way, you're going to end up looking at yourself like my mother forced me to look at myself, over a different issue, of course. But you're going to force yourself to look at yourself, and you're going to regret what you didn't do to take better care of yourself. Doesn't mean you have to do everything right, because none of us do. But all of us know, no matter what we're doing, we could do more to make ourselves better than what we are. We all know that if we truly, truly look in the mirror.
Amen. Look in the mirror. I love that. Should be the name of this day. Alpa, Stephen A., you were both such a powerful pair of motivation, inspiration, and spirituality, from gratitude and compassion and presence. I just loved it. And before I say our ending prayer, I want all of our listeners, all of our gathering, to know that this will be the last time we use Zoom. We're moving it to an entire platform. We're going to stream live at ACS HEALED Facebook and also on YouTube. So we're putting the links in the chat box. So from now on, we'll be able to continue this conversation and dialogue organically right on Facebook. So please, we will share this information via emails to everyone, and text and tweets. But I want you to know, first and foremost, this is the last day. The HEALED Facebook page will be our new platform. And please spread the word. I'm asking each of you to tell 2 others to get their HEALED bracelet, and share with me right now, just this moment, this prayer. And it says exactly what Stephen A. was saying earlier about we don't appreciate enough. The prayer is not petitionary. We're not asking for anything. All we're saying is thank you. Thank you for the grace to welcome what is happening right now. Thank you. Peace.